You would think it'd be a hard time making a name for yourself in YouTube videos, especially when it comes to Canadian financial planning. Yikes. Tough road to hoe. And yet, here's a guy who's getting thousands of followers on each of his visits. Rhys Martell is a financial advisor with Well Built Wealth. He's going to join us right after this break. Rhys, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the obvious. YouTube doesn't seem obvious as a place to start your venture. How did you get started that way?
Well, actually, I had a friend who was already successful in this space, and he encouraged me to join him in it, which was very gracious of him, actually. I was at first thinking, like, are you sure that you want like competition to like, why are you asking me to do this? But yeah, he's very confident in himself, so he wasn't too worried about it. And he's right. There's lots of Canadians. So I guess it's still the Wild West and lots to conquer in that space online, I would say.
Especially in the financial space, because there aren't a lot of people that do it. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I know that is because of compliance.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
How did you get
compliance.
around the compliance thing?
Well, I walked away from my investment licenses and I partnered with fiduciary portfolio managers who now carry that burden, right? So Justwealth is actually a great example of that relationship. And so I no longer have to run all of my marketing efforts through a compliance department. Now, I did do it for a lot of years, and so I learned the ins and outs of compliance, which is important because you still have to be compliant in terms of the things that you say, right? If you don't want to get in trouble. So I'm grateful for the knowledge that came with it, but now I don't have to run anything through. So I'm free basically to create.
Okay, so talk about the creation process then. How did you pick YouTube?
Well, really just because my friend encouraged me to it, and I saw some of the math behind it. And I've had, I've done a bit of film work in the past just on my own. And so I enjoy making that kind of stuff. And I decided I would give it, I said I would give it 1 year. And if I could get monetized after 1 year, then it would probably be worth my time. And it took 4 months. So it's happened a lot faster than I expected. And now it feels like it's kind of my home.
Yeah, your number of followers seems to be growing on a broadcast by broadcast basis. Are you using some other marketing techniques, social media or something?
No. I mean, I think we share the videos that I make on YouTube on like LinkedIn, maybe Facebook or something like that, but I don't even log into those things really. So I'm not really sure.
So it's totally organic within YouTube.
Yeah, no ads, no nothing, just making content that people care about.
Okay, so what does that tell you about the need in the marketplace for what I would call financial education? Now, I think that's basically what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's massive. I would say that people are actually starving for this. The financial services industry, in my opinion, there are good people out there, but it has failed in general to deliver financial planning. I think for a long time, what everyone thought the real value was what financial advisors thought their value was picking good investments for people, and not really focusing at all on what people's futures would look like or the implications of certain decisions. I have found that as I've leaned further away from that and more into the planning, that people's eyes light up, their faces. Our meetings are far more enjoyable. People want to know what their future looks like. They want to know what things will be if they do this or if they do that. And I mean, everyone wants a good portfolio, but as long as that's sorted out, then it's really the portfolio is a 3-minute conversation in our meetings most of the time.
Yeah, because you pass it off to other people to do that. So, okay, what are your hot topics when people look at your videos, for instance?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not the things that I think are ultimately terribly important, but everyone wants to know about CPP. They want to know about OAS. They want to know how those things work and the implications of delaying or taking early. And then everybody wants to know, how can I pull money out of my RSP without paying a boatload of tax? So those are like the 3 main topics: OAS, CPP, and getting money out of an RRSP. Well, there's one more. How much do I need to retire?
Right. So how do you, okay, how do you sculpt those videos around that though? Because I did see the one where you tackled CPP and old age security at the same time, and you had little bullet points that you inserted. Is it? Are you at risk of oversimplifying things?
Oh, probably. Probably. I don't know. I've actually been always a little bit anxious that I'm not smart enough to do this, or I'm not a good enough planner to do this, or that maybe I do make things too simple. But I think it's actually proving to be why people are choosing to watch what I do, is because I actually speak in just normal English. I don't know. I'm from up north BC. I'm just a normal person, and I don't like to speak in financial lingo. I'm a chartered investment manager, a fellow of the Canadian Securities Institute, a financial. I've done all of the studying that I need to do, but I just like to talk to people normal. And so I do like to simplify things, because I think most financial concepts are actually pretty basic, and that most people could understand far more than they think that they could.
Yeah, absolutely true. And the CPP, I mean, you have to delve through pages and pages when you go to the CRA website to understand what CPP is, or old age security, or when to take it. I get that part. What about the, as you say, getting the money out of their RSPs? Do you use accountants to farm out that part of your business? And then how do you speak to that in your videos?
Well, I use a financial planning software that I think is the best that we have available. And so, we're able to map out a whole bunch of different scenarios to find out great drawdown strategies. But in terms of like tax-friendly ways to actually get your RSP out, there's not really a ton of options. Like, there just isn't, except for just decumulation planning. Thinking
Right.
through how you're going to do it before you do it, really, and layering it with CPP and OAS.
Okay, is that software available to the general public, or do you have to be a professional to get it?
Yeah, you have to go through an advisor to get it.
Okay, then it does speak to the knowledge level of Canadians overall and their ability to get information. Obviously, they're coming to your videos. Where else are you hearing the Canadians are getting their information?
Nowhere. Where are you hearing?
Well, that's why I came to you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that this is just a huge problem. I mean, we talk to people all of the time who are calling, and they all have the same concerns. I had a woman just the other day. She's hilarious, but she's telling me about how she goes into the bank that she deals with, and she has quite a bit of money, but she always has the sense that she knows more than the person that she's talking to. She said last time she was in there, she had the distinct sense that she was interrupting him from his video games. Right. And this is literally the frustration that people are dealing with, right? Like, they've got decent amount of money saved and set aside, and they would just like some reasonably competent help, not even the best help, but just reasonably competent. And they don't know what options exist to them. And so this is why they end up on YouTube. They just don't know where else to go.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so then let's paint a scenario. I walk up to you, or I come into your office, or I deal with you on Zoom. I don't know whether you use Zoom for your initial meetings, but
Yeah.
let's say I walk in and I ask you that very question: how much do I need to retire? Where do you start?
Well, I never can answer that question. I only just start with here's how our process works, right? Like, that we will do the full planning for you, and whether or not you want your investments managed as well, or if you just want us to do the planning for you. But it's basically case by case. So I can't really know until you give us all the information. So I never promise anything up front. That's for sure.
Well, it's not a function of promising, but where does the process start?
Yeah, I think just by we have to get all of their information into the system and just layer it out piece by piece.
Right. And then overall, how long does it take you to come up with a solution? Do you just plug the numbers into the software and you're away to the races?
Actually, yeah, it is pretty quick.
Wow.
Now it's always a process of implementation and maintaining, all right? Because people's situations are always changing.
Right. How often do you update with your investors?
Well, I try to do it once a year, but lots of people don't actually want that often, but we try to do minimum once a year. But whenever we're bringing someone on in the beginning, it's always, it's pretty heavy in the beginning. We're doing a lot of meetings. We're really getting to know their situation in depth. But really, once we have the data, we've done so many plans that it really just doesn't take a long time to give somebody a really clear idea of where they stand and what decisions they should be focusing on over the next little bit. But yeah, we try to do things, average at least once a year. But we have an open door policy in our practice. Anytime something changes in your situation, like 100%, we're all over it. We try to walk that fine line between being annoying and giving really good service to people. Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, though, you must, if you're so popular, and we're talking thousands of people on your YouTube.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, I mean, you must get overwhelmed by the number of clients that you're dealing with.
It certainly has come in some pretty staggering waves. And so I've hired someone else to join me in the practice here. So I've hired a CPA, CFP. He is smarter than I am to join me and to help me with the volume, because sometimes it does actually get pretty significant. Yeah.
What's the biggest horror story that somebody walked in with, and how did you solve it? And compare that to the average investor.
Whew. That is a really good question. Actually, I have actually pulled some people out of the rubble of dealing with advisors who, I don't know that it was necessarily theft, but there was deep shenanigans going on where we like, so I've actually had that twice, where people have come with their situations where I don't even remember the firm that had to go through everything, but it's basically like, here is what is left of our situation. How can you fix? But I mean, like, when you ask me like worst, I guess like that would be the worst. But I've actually also seen some pretty significant do-it-yourself mistakes. So people who grabbed a hold of everything, and of course, a rising tide floats all the boats, as we know in this industry, right? And it's easy to be a rock star when everything is going well, but when the tide turns, things can get pretty ugly. And so I've seen some pretty rough scenarios from people who lost a stunning amount of money really rapidly.
Yeah, and you could have done it last year in 2022. That would be an example. Yeah. Get in at the wrong time kind of thing without advice. But then on the other hand, you're kind of scaring me a little bit when you say you've had somewhat fraudulent advisors in the investment space, and you've come across it. Do you think the investment community is doing enough to build trust?
No. No, I don't. But I don't think it's mostly because of those fraud cases. I think those fraud cases are pretty far in between. I think the regulations that we have in place are pretty tight. Using a custodian is a great way around it, like Justwealth does, like lots of the portfolio management firms have to do. Using a custodian is a great way to safeguard yourself there. But I think where trust is really being eroded in this industry is the actual lack of work that advisors are doing. Like, it's just, I don't want to disparage the industry too much here, so I don't want to say too much about it, but I just, so often people are paying 2.5% a year for portfolio management, planning, or whatever the whole package is supposed to be for financial advice. And yet they're literally getting none of that. Maybe portfolio management, and maybe it's mediocre at best, but no planning, no nothing. And I think that erodes trust more than anything. If you're not paying for it and you're not getting it, then no one's upset about it. But when you're paying a huge amount of money every year to have someone never do anything, I think that's done a lot of harm for the reputation of the financial services industry as a whole.
Okay, so two questions spring out of that. First one is, what should an investor be paying? And the second one is the industry doing enough education? I mean, we kind of touched on that earlier, but what do you think they need to improve in education, I guess is a better way to phrase it?
Oh, I don't know. How does the industry do it? I'm a capitalist, right? So like, I think that people like me should just go ahead and do it like we're doing it. So education can spring up naturally. I think, and YouTube is just a great platform to do it. And of course, there's lots of really good advisors doing that as well. So I don't know that the industry itself needs to do anything. I think that individuals can and will grab it, and then capital will flow to them because of that. That was
What
kind of a
about
nerdy
the?
answer, but sorry, what was the first
No, that's
question?
good. And the other part was the fees. What should
Oh
people be
yeah.
paying for advice?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think ultimately that's a function of value. But I do think that 2.5% a year to have a relationship with someone who maybe will call you when it's RSP time so that you can give them some money for a deposit is inappropriate. I know, for us, for full service, for portfolio management and full planning, ongoing implementation and maintaining of your plan, we're not higher than 1.5. That's our highest all in, including MERs. So I know that this job can be done really well for a whole lot less than what most people are paying.
No kidding. And it starts to add up and compound, obviously. Okay, back
Yeah,
to your videos, because I want to wind this up a little bit. Back
sure.
to your videos. How often do you do them? And are you running out of subjects?
Yeah, no. I was originally, I read that you should do 2 a week. That was not happening. And then I tried to just do 1 a week, and even that's not happening all the time. I actually got, when the first wave of new people came, I went 7 weeks without being able to put out a video. But actually, that's when I had the most growth. So I don't know. I don't know what the formula is. I would love to be able to do 1 a week. Sometimes that is just simply not going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, they take a lot of time to produce too.
They do. And I'm so anal and such a perfectionist that, if I would just let go of some of that, I'm sure I could do a lot more. But yeah, it's my own fault.
Well, you're doing very well with it, Rhys. Thank you so much for sharing some of that.
Thank you, Pat.
Rhys Martell. He's with Well Built Wealth.